Welcome back to the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast. We're back after a week off because holidays are tricky. Over last week I was in Oklahoma. You were here. I didn't bring any of my podcasting stuff to Oklahoma. I was, I'm just gonna hang out with the family, kind of just decompress a little bit,
Be away.
So what was going on while I was gone, Connor?
Honestly, not too much. We had part of you leaving. You were here in the state, but you weren't able to be here. We had live ABs yesterday.
Yeah.
That you were returning rental car.
Yeah, I was returning a rental car that morning.
So we had live ABs. Outside of that, man, it's been like just normal, day to day. With us I've took off the 24th through the 26th. The 31st and the 1st, and then we're going to be gone for the ABCA convention here January 4th through the 8th. And so just been trying to get as many guys in as possible with all their lessons and stuff like that. And so It's pretty much been like lessons from like 10 o'clock in the morning to like 9 o'clock at night, just running through, and it's been fun. You like it, and if you don't, it's not the business to be in.
Yeah, holidays were wild. I mean, good thing was like most guys kind of left me alone. Like, don't text me at all. I'm not going to be available for it. But we're recording this before Velocity night, so shout out to anybody that potentially breaks any PRs.
Woo-hoo.
Can't wait for that to go down. I think it might be a smaller group because I don't know if we had our communications a little bit off this week. What have you got any Twitter beefs lately?
Not too bad. I subtweeted. There was a Next Level Baseball.
Oh, I know those guys.
Yeah. They had put out something.
I think I know what shows. Was it the exit velocity? It was just something that people came up with.
Yeah, and he had put something out like a week or two ago that was like, players with facial hair are like worse players, and like just like some outlandish shit, and I was just like, all right, whatever.
Well, I think he's a guy that I feel solely tweets to just get a rise out of people.
Oh yeah, and he's one of the ones like I've actually ended up muting because
I muted him too.
Tweets out like a lot of political shit where it's just like, all right, dude, whatever. Like, I'm not even gonna try and have this on my feed right now. But he commented the exit velo thing that you mentioned, that it was essentially a metric that people that sucked at baseball came up with to be able to tell if a ball's hit hard or not, because they don't have the like feel to like see a ball get hit hard or hear the sound of a ball getting hit hard. It was like, all right, whatever. But what I laughed about is someone like quote tweeted it and was they had been blocked from Next Level, and was essentially just like, like this account's kind of bullshit, whatever. After his tweet of the bearded thing, he said he went back and he looked at the profile. The guy had like most of the guy's team had facial hair.
So that's weird. He posts a picture of the team he coached.
Yeah.
As his profile picture. Yeah, all of them have facial hair.
Yeah, and it's just like, all right, bro, like, you're spewing some bullshit out. And so I ended up quote tweeting it because his response to somebody that said, exit velo has like a purpose, his immediate response was, do you have a relationship with minor league and big leaguers? Like, do you even talk to them? And so I quoted it, and I just essentially said, like, this is how everybody always wins debates.
Yeah.
Like, this is the best way to win a debate, is just to simply just ask, like, stupid questions like that. Because, like, where do you go from there? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you continue a conversation from that? You don't really. And I think it mostly just shows, like, how ignorant, I guess, like, that person is.
I think it's more just bad faith. It's
Right.
like you're not in there to actually have a conversation. You're there or have a debate about something. You're there to get a rise out of people and make people think you're right. And then you ask a stupid question, and then it's like, I don't know. Do you feel like do you win the argument that way? Just like, well, do you work with minor league guys, pro guys? I'm like, well, if I don't, I don't, but I can still make an argument about why exit velocity is an important metric to judge a guy by.
And it's one of those, like, because it's just frustrating, because, like, in my idea, like, anybody that uses technology is considered like a new school, and like there's the community on Twitter is like just anti. Like, if you have any certifications in your bio, like if you have anything, like you're immediately just like wiped off to think like you need that stuff to be able to coach. Like, I know you utilize it not as a way to actually like coach, but I feel like you and I use it for validation of what we are coaching, if that makes any sense. So like, it frustrates me because it's like I can do lessons without any of that, and I've always been able, like, that's how I started off, you know what I'm saying? But it, like, we utilize it to verify and validate the athletes' like effort, energy, that the time that they're putting in. We use it to be like, here, like the shit that you're going through, the process that you're like, when you go to bed at night and you can't like go to sleep because all you're thinking about is like the movement you need to do, or like the like goals that you have. Like, when you're up late at night, like, this is to show you that it's working. Like, this is to show you that, like, we are on the right path.
Right.
Versus saying like, this is like your swing, if that makes any sense. Like, we use the metrics to validate the experience rather than to use it during the experience, if that makes sense. If that makes any sense.
Right. Well, I think we utilize our technology to, and I think it's an enhancement for the kids.
Yeah.
Right. Where, you know, how many times have you had a kid go like, I felt like I swung like garbage on that one, and they end up hitting a really good exit velocity number?
All the time.
I have all the kids that go like, that felt like garbage out of my hand, but they threw it 85. Right, so it incentivizes the kid, and I know there'll be the old school guys on Twitter like, well, they need to be incentivized all the time. Like, do they really care? And it's like, well, we're living in a day and era, and I think it goes for every day and era, where everything needed to be gamified.
Yep.
Right. You know, how much better would people be if they, you know, you made practice fun, if you made practice, like, they garner the skills that you're trying to teach them through an athletic competition, through creating chaos. You know, you can do all the block training. You can do block training all day you want, you know, hours on end. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good when the game comes around, right? You know, it's like, you know, got parents out there, or athletes out who are golfers, right? When you're out at the driving range, you could do your block practice, work on your swing mechanics all day long, but then you get out on the golf course and your swing mechanics kind of go to shit if it's like not the right lie. You know, on the driving range, it's supposed to be perfect. You know, everything's flat on the driving range, hopefully. You know, everything's flat. It's perfect. It's like the perfect lie every time.
Not in the rough. You're not in the bunker.
Yeah, you're not in the rough. You're not in the bunker. You're not on the walkway if you happen to hit the walkway or something like that. You don't have obstacles in your way. You don't have trees. You don't have bushes. You don't have a fence post, whatever have you. You know, you can only be so good if you're practicing in a controlled environment. And I feel that's where a lot of old school coaches fall, is like try to coach too much in that old school,
like, perfect environment.
Perfect environment. Like, you know, how many times can I soft toss a ball to you and make you feel good about yourself? You know, but like, I have to be able to train you into a chaos situation, which is what the game is. You know, if everybody worked on the fundamentals at some point, like, we'll all be fundamentally sound, but the game wouldn't be that good.
Right. Because
we only know what fundamentally is right, but how many times in the game do fundamentals kind of get thrown out the door?
Right.
Like, they're a good returning to the base, but if you can't, you know, perform under pressure or do things that you have not practiced, you know, then you start seeing like where these deficiencies come, and where do we start seeing like who are the good kids, who are the bad kids? You know, who are good in the batting cage versus who are good actually on the field.
Exactly. And like, I was thinking about this the other day, like, for any of the old school coaches that like hate the idea of exit velocity, right? Or hate the idea of like tracking those kind of things.
Right.
If you got pulled over speeding, right? And it's like, let's say it's a 65, right? And you were going 67, and all of a sudden a cop comes up to you and is like, hey, you know, I got you speeding. Here's a ticket. You're going 15 over, I think.
Right.
If you're the instructor, you're going to sit there like, what do you mean you think? Well, you know, I knew you were speeding. I don't really know how fast you were going because we don't use, you know, radars or anything like that because, you know, that's just a fake metric that people came up with. But I knew you were speeding, and it looked pretty fast. So, here's a 15 over ticket. You're
right.
gonna, like, what are you talking like? We you can use something to actually gauge and be accurate, use it. Like, what if it wasn't available back in the day?
Right.
It is available now. So it's like, does it make sense to be like, well, they didn't use these back in the day. Yeah, they also didn't use x-ray machines. They also didn't use like MRIs. They also didn't we didn't use a lot of stuff that we use today, and we have the ability to use it today because we've evolved. We've been able to cell phones started coming around in the 90s and 80s.
Well, yeah, I saw a tweet today. I thought it was pretty funny. It's not a baseball related tweet, but it's like what Christmas was in 2022 or what are the things now that get gifted in 2022 for Christmas or whatever versus what wasn't there 20 years ago. It's like Apple, like iPhones, Hulu, Apple TV, Netflix. I mean, Netflix, but to where Netflix is
wireless
headphones. Like, if you think about the Apple Watches, iPads, MacBook Pros, all these things that didn't exist 20 years ago, but now it's like, if you don't get me at least one of these things, I'm like, okay, well, are you an old school gift giver at that point now? Like, if you're just giving Lincoln Logs to a 5-year-old now, like, 5-year-old's going to like, what the hell, dude? What am I supposed to do with this?
And for me, it's one of those where you have to apply new stuff to weed out the kinks.
Right.
I bring up the cell phone. Cell phones used to fit in backpacks. They were massive, and now
you look at the old school cell phones. You'd think you were calling in an air raid during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, they're massive, and now we got this phone that just fits in our pocket. But if we never would have used the cell phones that fit in your backpack, we never would have gone, this is kind of convenient. Maybe we should find something that works a little bit better. Then we made something that didn't fit in a backpack that was an iPad size. And now it slowly just kept making improvements and adjustments. But that never would have happened if we never applied it when we first could apply it.
Right.
So now we have all this stuff is it perfect right now? No. I don't think if you ask any coaches, anybody's methods of training or what they use to train, is it perfect? No. But it's a lot better than what it was. And the only reason that's the case is because we're using it, we're learning what can be better about it, and then we're, adapting with it and stuff like that. And if we never used the technology when it first was available, we wouldn't be as, accelerated at an accelerated rate of technology that we have now. Because we wouldn't have known how to make the adjustments.
Well, something you always notice, if you ever go on Fangraphs and read their blogs about different things, if you can go into their glossary and you can find out what all these sabermetrics mean and what they're measuring. And a lot of times you'll read the article. Do they say it's a perfect metric? Let's say war. Is war a perfect metric? Absolutely not. But it's the best we have right now. All right. Same thing with weighted on base average, all these things that we look at, they'll openly admit, these are not perfect metrics when we're constantly working for new ways to find those perfect metrics to how do we rate baseball players? How do we judge a person next to another? Right. I think the majority of people who bitch about this stuff are the ones that realize their jobs are at stake.
Yep.
It's, you see the next level baseballs or the Jeff Fries of the world or all these guys are the guys who feel okay, I played baseball. I played in the big leagues for 10 years. Why am I not getting any coaching jobs? Right. In the minor league. It's because you're behind on the times. And instead of adapting, they're just going to sit around and just whine about it. Because they're oh, these guys don't know what they're talking about. But they're the ones getting the job. So I don't know. Do they really not know what they're talking about, or are you just sitting there too far with your head up your ass to not be willing to adapt, and you can maybe get those jobs? That's what I always feel like. It's just, I said that to Jeff one time. He never responded. I'm just you're just a middle-aged guy who was a has-been,
Old man yelling at the clouds.
Yeah, just an old man yelling, and you're just mad because you can't get a job at an organization. You can't be a hitting consultant or an advisor.
Well, he doesn't. The reason he's not a hitting instructor with an MLB team is because he doesn't want to. It's not that he hasn't been asked to. He just doesn't want to.
Right. Well, whatever you go, but you're not getting these jobs, and instead of adapting to the times, which it's only going to get more progressively data based. Yeah. This game. I'm sorry. I hate to tell people this, especially the old school. It's just gonna keep getting like this more and more. Right?
Well, what's their excuse going to be when all of a sudden the generation of players that are used to using this technology get to the majors, and then are done with being in the majors and are now coaching. Now they're going to have the playing and the technology side of both things.
Right.
Does that mean that because they use technology, does that mean that they suck as, instructors as well?
Yeah, were you handicapped as a player? Whatever the metrics might be. You can just say, like, all these people will say, like, oh, they're just all going based on the metrics and there's no adaptability. There is. There always is adaptability. It's what baseball is. It's an adaptability sport. It's an adaptability sport. It's the same, like the Mike Tyson quote, like, everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Why did you bring that up? Do you recall the T-shirt that one dude wore that had that? Did you see that Twitter beef? It's like 2 weeks ago.
You'd have to
Tim Pool or some shit like that. I can't remember the dude's name. He tweeted at me and Taylor Burns at Absolute Human Performance in Canada and was like, "You guys are talking shit," like, and then he posted a selfie with that shirt that had that quote on it. It was like, "Wait till I show up and see what you have planned next." That was literally like 2 weeks ago. So I thought you were like using that quote.
I don't know if I saw that. No, that was just off the cuff. But exactly, like in baseball, like, everyone has a plan when they face Jacob deGrom, and then they see Jacob deGrom, like, okay, I got to fix my plan.
Yep.
Or you see like all these good pitchers in Colorado. It's like everyone has a plan when they go up to the box, and then they see something they weren't expecting. I got to fix my plan.
Yeah, and like it's one of those where, like, I just looked it up. So the MLB was invented in like
1886.
Yeah, and slugging percentage wasn't a thing in both leagues until 1946.
Well, like stolen bases weren't a metric until like the 30s.
Did you know sacks in football weren't calculated until like the mid 80s?
Yeah,
like that. Right,
feels like an important stat.
And like the thing is like once that got brought up, like, people didn't freak out and like, oh, this is ruining the game. They're like, oh wow, like this is helping us learn more about the game.
Right.
Like it's one of those where it's like the more you know of something doesn't make it bad. You know what I mean? Like the more you know of that swing, the more of the metrics you know, the more of like just anything, the more information that you have, and especially as instructors, like imagine being an instructor and saying, no, I don't want to know more information about my athlete.
Right.
Like who would do that?
Well, you think about this. Think about like the basic stats that didn't exist 50 years ago, and like how can you tell who was a good hitter at that point?
Yeah.
Think about like batting average obviously was probably the first one to come in. It's like, okay, how much often do you get a hit?
Yeah, and that wasn't even a thing at the beginning. They even used to count walks as hits.
Right.
I just read.
Yeah, it's like but now you add an on base percentage, and on base percentage is a very big stat that everyone likes to look at. It's like how often does this guy get on base? That probably wasn't invented until, what, 60, 70 years ago?
Well, we'll take a little gander.
But my point stands is, like, we're always adding data and we're always adding numbers that are going to help us better understand how the game is played and what makes players good.
On-base percentage was invented in the 1940s.
So you think, like, there was 40 years, Babe Ruth never played with on-base percentage as a stat.
Yeah. And like, what would they say? Like when on base came out, they're like, "Was batting average not good enough to calculate this?"
Right.
Like, well, no. Like, we don't count walks. We don't count hit by pitches. We don't count errors. We don't count catcher interference.
It's understanding like there's other ways. Remembering there's other ways to get on base beyond a hit.
I think, that'll be. I have an idea for our like closing topic. I'll pull up all the different ways that you can reach first base, and I want to see if you can name them all.
God damn it! Now you're gonna make me think about it. So yeah, I just like I say, I think the people that bitch about those kinds of things are the ones that realize that their jobs are becoming more and more meaningless.
Oh yeah,
and they're just falling behind the times.
Well, and I put out a tweet last night where I said I'm just so tired of the argument where it's essentially like, I'm going to discredit you, and that makes me more credible.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a fucking thing. Like, that's not real. So just because, Jeff Fry is fucking yelling out the clouds and like, that's bad, I think he inherits and thinks that means he has more credibility.
That therefore invalidates what he does, which it doesn't.
Exactly. And it's like, no, like, that's not how this works. Just because you just think someone else is wrong doesn't mean you're right. Like, the only way to be right is if you're right.
Right.
There's a lot more ways to be wrong.
For sure. moving on to the main topic of the final episode of 2022, we wanted to talk about the things we want to leave in 2022, whether that's, I don't know how we say, like just training things that we find kind of dumb, athlete mentalities we wish kind of just went away.
Anything and everything that is involved with like training
Just
in
go
this
leave,
podcast.
leave it in 2022. Let it die in 2023. Yep. So I'll give you the honors. You can start out.
What a sweetheart. My first one's going to be, it's a training device. It's called the Rotor System. It's so fucking bad. It's essentially working on squishing the bug. So think of, and it's a Jeff Fry endorsed product. So i.e. why it's so fucking bad. So think of a bucket lid that can rotate like a full 360. So you put it on the ground, you put your back foot on top of it, and then you keep your foot connected to the ground, and it will rotate with your foot. So that way you can just like work on squishing the bug. And it's so fucking bad. And it's more so a part of the, like, that one is a straight product where I'm like, this is fucking bad. And like, right. I've actually Shay Bell up at B&B. He actually, me and him have a kind of a thing where we go through and we just like talk shit on like products, and we'll like message each other back and forth of like, this is so eyewash, like this is bad. And it more like that product is so fucking bad. Like that product directly needs to stay in 2022. The fact that it was available in 2022 flabbergastes me. Like squishing the bug, I thought died in like 2010s. I guess not, but nope. It's also like just people blindly like following and supporting like stuff just because a big leaguer said it. Like just because like someone of notoriety like is advertising or like saying that they like it doesn't mean that's good. Just because a big leaguer made it doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, I feel like it goes in line with just because a big leaguer put his name on it doesn't mean he actually endorses the product.
Yeah, no, like there's a thing called paid sponsorships.
Yeah.
So it's where someone gets paid to read a script and talk about how good something is. Not that they actually are just endorsing it them personally. Like it's a business thing. And I think a lot of people forget about that.
My leave it in 2023 is for the athletes. Listen to the podcast. Leave your inconsistent schedule in 2023.
Damn it.
I'm having a lot of this issue where I'm getting guys who, they're looking for high level results, but they come like once, maybe twice a week. And it's like a sporadic thing. It's not even a consistent thing. Like, well, they'll come in, they're like, oh, I got to make sure I plug in my sessions for the week. So I'm like, oh, I didn't come Monday or Tuesday, so I got to go Thursday. I got to go Wednesday, and I can't come Friday, so I got to go Thursday. I'm like, well, I can't do – if I go hard with you on Wednesday, I can't do anything with you on Thursday. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then they'll get mad at you because it's just like, okay, well, what's he going to do the pitching stuff today? I was like, well, he did all of his pitching stuff yesterday, so today's a little more of a mobility / like recovery day, right? And then the parents get mad because it's like, oh, well, what am I paying for? I'm like, you're paying me to make your kid better, but an inconsistent schedule makes it very tough on both of us to make him a better baseball player, and I think what I always try to stress with guys is consistency, and maybe this would be like our I know what that is. One of our resolutions, maybe we could talk about at the very end too, closing, is need to teach people that this is a long-term, consistent kind of an investment. Training here is a long-term thing. It is not a come in here in December and then hoping by March you're going to add 10 miles of velo and you can throw, curveballs that fall off the face of the earth, and you can throw strikes whenever you feel like it.
Fast performance is the smoker of the training development. Like we're not a microwave, we're a smoker.
Right. Like we're the, you need to thaw out your Omaha steaks overnight.
Shout out the Farr family. Appreciate you guys for the Omaha steaks.
Yeah. It's, the filet mignon. It takes a while to carve it out, put it where it needs to be, grill it to the right temperature, the right level of doneness. Marinate it, give it the good size, like some fried potatoes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's got to be a dish. Like, do you want that or do you want like the breakfast burrito I can get at Costco? Like, zap it for 3 minutes.
Yep.
And
Or don't even go Costco. Just go like gas station.
Yeah, like exactly. Like do what do you prefer in your food? You've got to develop that in your training, right? It's the same thing. Like guys just feel like, you know, I feel like we need to work with guys on understanding what consistency is, and that consistency is king in this kind of environment, in this kind of training.
Yep.
You know, it's long term. It's not microwave. It's, you know, everything that you do, you know, get better sleep. What do you need to be more consistent at? Going to bed at the right time and waking up at the right time to be more consistent with your sleep, waking up freshly, waking up fresh. How do you smell better? You know, you make sure I have a routine for cleaning yourself, like take a shower, put your deodorant on, put your cologne or your Axe body spray, if that's still a thing. You know, if you want to get big in the weight room, what do? You have to be consistent in the weight room. You can't get strong, you know, you can't get strong, you know, going to the gym 1 or 2 times a week. You can get good results. Don't get me wrong.
You might get tone.
You'll get tone, but you're not going to get strong. You're not going to get ripped. You're not going to get big muscles, right? That's a long-term consistency problem, right? Same thing with, you know, putting on weight. You know, like how do you put on weight? You have to consistently be consuming more calories than you burn, which we talk about all the time. You know, understand that everything that you do has to be a consistent progression. You know, it's never going to be right out the gate, right, that you're going to get some results. You might get some results because you may be moving better and you're in a better headspace to do those things. But, you know, everything has the progression and has to take time. You can't be like, oh, I've plateaued in my velocity, I can't come here anymore. Like, that's just not how this works.
Right.
You know, if you're going to just keep, you know, it's kind of just like chasing the high. Right, if you're going to keep moving
chasing the dragon,
yeah, if you're going to keep going from facility to facility, chasing the dragon, you know, one facility does 2 or 3 months with you, gets you to a place, you stop going there, go to the next place. Oh, maybe they do something, you don't get the results, go to the next place. Like, you know, you can't just sit around expecting that going to multiple places is what's going to get you to the desired result. A lot of this shit takes time. For a lot of these guys, it takes a lot longer than they anticipate.
And I want to add on to it. It's more of like what I wrote down, but it attaches to the schedule is the inconsistently last second schedule stuff.
Right.
And my more frustration is with the athletes that have like short-sighted with their scheduling, like you referred. Then my other one is coaches. I've had so far 3 different kids, 3 different programs in the last 2 weeks that have had either practices scheduled. I had one kid get a practice scheduled at 2 a.m. Like they sent out the notification on Facebook at 2 a.m.
Right.
that they had practice that day. I've had another athlete that didn't get notification, or they got notified that they were going to have like a yoga like session and then a hitting session the following day. That next day in the morning, the coach, about an hour before the scheduled practice, sent out, hey, no like yoga session. Well, they also meant to say no hitting session, but they didn't tell the athlete that. Oh. And they told they scheduled this the day prior. So I had an athlete that had a session scheduled on like, let's just say a Friday. Thursday night, he goes, hey, we just got notification. We can't, like, I have to change. My coach just scheduled a practice. Then at like, let's say their session was at 6, their regular practice was at 5. At like 5:15, he texted me. He's like, hey, our practice ended up getting canceled. Can I still come in? I'm like, yeah, of course. So like the inability for coaches, and to be a coach, you have to be, out of high school. So that means you're over the age of 18. If you're a high school if you're a head coach, you're probably over the age of 24, probably over the age of 30, if we're being honest. But, you can be like, your inability to have consistency and just communication for scheduling with your athletes is going to like fall down. You are showing them what is expected of, being an adult at the, next stage of life. Like, you're showing that you can just last second out of nowhere, just drop everything and say, hey, like, we're doing this. That's not how life works. That's not how just anything in life works when it goes to work, when it comes to school, when it comes to, relationships. Like, that doesn't work. And you're just showing and teaching them that this is how, life is, when that's not how generally other people live. And so like it's just frustrating because one is screwing over the athlete, one is screwing over us as an instructor, and then three, it's just not conducive to anybody or helping anything. And it's more so like a power dynamic, in my opinion. Like, who's willing to drop everything and come to practice tomorrow? Like,
Right.
who's dedicated enough to do that? And like, maybe that's not why they're doing it that way, but like at some point when it's that consistent, it's starting to become and look like that. And that's what's frustrating to me.
Right. Yeah, it's just and I coaches will probably listen to this and go, oh, it's like, I was a coach. I understand that. I was all
Like,
involved
shit
in that.
happens.
Yeah, shit happens, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you need to be prepared months in advance. Hey, we're gonna have, I get this, like, coaches turnover all the time. They, as an assistant coach, working closely with my head coach all the time, we always were just like, all right, we need to find a coach for this team. We need, and I get it. A lot of it's a struggle, but the faster you can get that stuff figured away, the easier it becomes, right? You need to it's almost like you've got to be thinking of yourself like a college coach, or like where it becomes, maybe it's not your sole job, but you got to think of it as like like a good secondary thing where like it gives secondary priority. That, okay, tryouts are in March. I want to be getting my guys ready, primed and ready to do this. Maybe I start looking at like, what's the earliest I can get them doing workouts? Like, it's January 5th. All right, January 5th is our first practice. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what the whole first month's going to look like. Here's what the whole second month's going to look like. Here's what the lead up's going to look like. And then we go do our tryouts. The faster you can get those things done, then all the coaches can get on board, all the players can get on board. And then the players can, if they have a trainer, they work, like, they can get on board with that. That's what I don't understand was, like, we get a lot of coaches who will go, there are plenty of coaches, not a lot of coaches, but there are plenty of coaches who will say, what we do is not conducive to what the high school does. Like, no, we don't want to be non-conducive to you guys. We want to help you. We want to assist you in making your players better. I have a coach now. He's a brand new coach, and I know him personally. I've, trained at his father's facility. He's a brand new head coach at a high school I used to coach at. And I had one of his players in on Friday. What's today? Wednesday. Had him in on Wednesday. And I was like, hey, do you want to do some mount velo? And he goes, oh, well, coach doesn't want us doing velo right now. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, he just said no velo for anybody. I'm like, but you've been coming in for 2 months now. You're in a velo stage. Like, and I had 2 other kids from that same program who are also in velo stages. Like, do I just say, like, hey, we can't do velo anymore? Sorry, because your high school coach told me that you can't do velo, when he doesn't know what the fuck you're doing? 1, he doesn't know what stage you're in. And 2, treating everybody like they're all on the same page. That's something here's my next one. Leaving this in 2022 is high school coaches believing everybody's on the same page.
Yep.
You're going to have various levels of guys who know what they're doing. Like, the guys that have been coming to me from this high school, they know what they're doing. They know I got guys that are roll into pitch design. Some guys moving into mound velo, all that. Those guys are way ahead of the curve of I'm going to assume 75% of the program, right? It's like, and like what you're saying, it's a power dynamic. Like, I get it. You're a brand new coach. You're young. You're a very young guy. You're a good kid, this coach, and I like him a lot. And I think he will be very beneficial to this program. But words of advice. Stop treating everybody like they're the same, and be willing to swallow your pride or swallow your power that there are people in your program that are out doing other things at for second parties, right? Guys who are training with me, guys training with you, guys that training with all these other facilities. But to tell them, like, you can't do that, then that's how you're going to turn players against you.
And it's a broad generalization, like you said. Like, I mean, you have some kids in the program that are not able to do anything right now because they're playing basketball.
Right.
And you have some other people that haven't been doing any other outside sports because they're only play baseball. So they've been training all off season. Like, you have so many different people at so many different spots. You have so many.
Well, and then you're going to bring in the kids who maybe didn't play baseball for the last 3 years.
Exactly.
Right. You're going to have guys with various levels of ability, various levels of knowledge. And if you're going to treat them all the same, and like, I'm going to all hold your hand, we're all going to go through the same thing. The kids who are more advanced are going to get fucking pissed because they're like, I've already been doing this for God knows how many months. Mm-hmm. And then the kids who haven't been playing baseball can't keep up. because they don't have that knowledge, right? If you're going to treat everybody down the middle, like the guys who play basketball, or the guys who just haven't been going to second parties, they just like do everything that your high school program does. Everyone in the middle is going to be good, but all your advanced kids are going to get mad because they're doing concepts that are just like, why do I have to keep doing this? This is stuff that I already did 3 months ago. I'm 2 miles ahead of everybody else. And then you lose buy-in from those guys. The kids who are way behind, who maybe are just like, hey, I want to go try out for baseball because I want to go do something with my life. I want to do something better with my high school career, with my high school life. And they don't know what a double cut is, or they don't know what this or that is, and you have to teach them, then that slows down the average guys because you're trying to teach these guys how to do the simple bullshit
up to that average. And like, it's one of those where I guarantee you that coach isn't going to be upset when one of your guys is the starting pitcher for when they go to their, I don't know, spring break tournament or whatever. Because like, let's say no velo right now. So do you know when
when are you going to do velo? Are you going to do it in February?
So did they tell you when they're allowed to start?
No.
Okay.
He just said no velo right now. Everybody on the team can't do velo. Like, why?
So let's say if they're not allowed to do velo now, let's say they start, beginning of February, let's just say, because there's an on-ramping phase, right? So how long does it take to on-ramp to velo?
4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, so let's say they started doing on-ramping right now. Okay, so we have 4 to 6 weeks. So that puts us.
You take the whole month of January to on ramp, and then you go into velo stuff, whatever that means. And then by the time velo's over, if you do it right, it's going to be right into tryouts. And then no one's prepared. No one's done live ABs. No one's done, game situations to test them on chaos.
So now you got 2 weeks of essentially doing live ABs to catch up. And now you're essentially starting games.
You play 1 or 2 games, yeah, and then you maybe go down. Let's go say like a good example was last season of 2022 is Pooter High School up in Fort Collins, and Pooter ran into the exact same scenario that every other school in Colorado does, where we all have to train inside. We're all doing BP in the gym. We're maybe doing live ABs. And it's a fucking disaster because no one can see the ball because the gym lights aren't very good. Yep. No one's out there playing on the field. You can't do ground. Everyone can do ground balls on the gym floor. It's going to give you perfect hops every time, right? But you're not in a game situation. Pooter goes out to California over spring break. They play Mater Dei High School, which is a top high school in the country. I think they're in California. And they play all these California teams, and they lost every game by at least 16. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some benefit in that. Like, hey, we got outside and we played these games that for them at least didn't matter.
Right.
Right. Like, Pooter's not concerned with how they do against these California teams. They want to see who can play out and all that. But if that's going to be your first 2 games, 1 or 2 games, like how does that benefit the kid? They're not ready to play. They're not primed to play.
Right.
So it's like, that's why I like the way Keith or Coach Wall or Valor does it. And I think Mark, there's that power dynamic, like where I feel like, Wall over at Valor, Mark Johnson at Cherry Creek, like all these guys who are like, we know what we're doing. And like, they're just like, go do it. I just need you to be ready when the season comes. Like, I feel like that's almost like
that's what matters.
Exactly. It's, I think there's a ability for coaches that they just need to swallow their pride. And a head coach, like you are a leader of men or young men or whatever, and your job is to manage them and put them in situations that will make them successful and get you to wins. Our job as trainers is to get them to be the best kids. That way they can execute the things that you want them to do.
Exactly. Like, and that's where I think people get misconstrued of like what a training facility is and what a like team training aspect is that like as a team, you're essentially going to say, all right, communitively, like together, how far can we go? Whereas individual training or development training is how far can I have you go as an individual? And it's one of those where if you can get everybody on board to pushing themselves as far as they can go, when you come together as a team, all of you are going to be able to go a lot further. Now, if only one person is making themselves their best version, everybody else is essentially like dead weight or like essentially like holding back the one player who's making themselves better. Like you have to, the only way to essentially make it to where, the entire team is able to be bought in is that everybody is bought in, 1 on their team, but then 2 on themselves. Like how many times have you known an athlete that doesn't put in any extra work, that doesn't do anything extra. Like just as even when like we were players, like we did not like that guy. We did not like the kid that showed up to the bare minimal and then would go home and just jack around. Because one of those is like, yeah, when he's here, but like he's not all here because he's not putting in what he could be putting in. And it makes it tough to trust your teammates in tough situations. Like if you know someone has put in like a shit ton of work and you know that they're a dog when it comes to training, if they fail in a high pressure situation, your first thought isn't going to be, what could they have done different for us not to have failed? They're going to say, man, I wish that would have worked out for him. But you turn around and you have the kid that doesn't do any extra work, that doesn't do anything that is conducive to the team and stuff like that. When they fail in a high pressure situation, that's when you hear all the teammates that are like, well, like, why did Timmy have to be in that situation? Like, if it was anybody else but Timmy, we would have been successful right there. Well, like imagine if Timmy had an idea of what training is and is able to make Timmy the best Timmy he can be, then they wouldn't be, upset about like, you have to have both. You can't just have team training and you can't just only have individual training. Like there is a need for both. And I think that gets lost a lot of the time with these team coaches because of that ego, because of the power dynamic. Like you mentioned, the top coaches that are in the Colorado Baseball Hall of Fame, they allow their kids to go elsewhere. It's the schools that have the coaches that haven't, I feel like, made a big enough name for them.
Well, there are the coaches who I feel like I see this more with coaches who they coach winning programs where they're not actually good coaches. Like they're the ones that like coach teams that are just by your neighborhood or just by happenstance just happen to have good talent.
Yep.
Right. I know a high school down south who through channels from other people I know, like their head coach, he won like coach of the year last couple of years, I think, for 4A, and all the players are like, he's not a good coach. We're just a really good collection of guys that all train at other places. They don't do anything with their high school programs necessarily. They probably do like, hey, we're doing a practice or whatever, but like they all go to a strength coach. They all go to a hitting guy or a pitching guy. It's not the head coach's responsibility, or it's not like he's the figurehead. It's not like he didn't make the guys better.
No.
He didn't make them better. He was just I was the best at managing my guys.
And that's what is needed, I think. And that's where I think a lot of coaches forget like that aspect of it. Is like managing a group of collective people that bring different pieces of the puzzle to make it. Like if everybody was the exact same puzzle piece, there would never, like, you can never complete the puzzle. Like everybody brings different pieces and you have to be able to make that puzzle piece the best puzzle piece. Like there can't be any extra phrase on it, like have the cleanest cut, the best image. And when you get everybody together and they have their best pieces, that's when the image looks the best when it comes together.
Right.
If everybody's image is fucked up and, there aren't clean cuts and the image is distorted and nothing looks right, even when all the puzzle pieces come together, you still may not be able to see what that puzzle is presenting because nobody took care of their own individual shit.
Right. Well, that's what I think. I'll finish on this point. I don't want to go further with this. Is how AJ and I did with Bear Creek. The season prior was our first year there. We won 4 games, right? But then we swallow our pride a little bit. We swallow our pride that there are guys who go to facilities and we're like, whatever. And that's what was going to be our goal this year before AJ's about to move. But like, that's what was going to be a thing. Like, hey, show up ready to go. And if you're not one of the best 25 guys for the varsity roster, you're just not one of the top 25 guys for the varsity roster. And I'm not going to right now. Right. But I'm not going to force you to like, come to these practices, come to this, come to that. I've never forced any of my guys to come train with me. I just say, hey, you want to come train with me? Come train with me. Yep. If you believe in what I do. And I've gotten a lot of guys who do that and they've been very successful.
Weird.
Right. I don't force them. I don't be like, you got to come do this. You got to come do this with me, because that's just like, you
don't get the quality buy-in.
Exactly. And that's the thing is like, I don't charge, like the guys who I've coached for my specific programs. I've never charged. And like, that's where I realized like who really has the buy-in and who doesn't. Right. If you're pushing a guy to do your program, and he maybe has been going to a pitching coach or he's been going to a hitting trainer or whatever, and you say like you can't go to that guy, as we were talking off air about a guy, like, you can't successfully create buy-in with a coach or with a player if you're just like, oh, everything you've done, just disregard that. That guy's a jackass. Well, it's like we were saying earlier, like what proves that you're good versus what makes this guy bad.
Yeah.
So what's your next one?
Let's see here. Let's go. Too many cooks in the kitchen. So and I don't think it's a bad thing to have the ability to talk with other cooks, to like pull together a great recipe. But if you have too many voices, if you have too many things going on, it can be pretty distracting and tough for athletes. And I bring this up. So I have an athlete that came to me and asked if we offer any packages that don't include the movement days that I've been doing. So essentially it's like your guys' velo nights, right? And I actually added the movement days as like an extra. Like it was one of those where it was like, I want my guys to have, I don't want any excuses. I want, my guys training the swing, and I also want them training the movement. Do I make them pay extra for the movement because I'm going to have to be there? I'm going to put the programs together. Like I'm doing a lot of extra stuff for it, or do I just offer it? And if whoever is hitting with me wants to come, they can come. So I just offer it. I had a family ask if it was possible to, remove the package or remove that, part of the package. And I asked why. I was like, what's going on? And they're like, well, he's doing training with his high school. He also does pitching training at a different facility. And they said that all the different exercises that he's doing are confusing him and he's not able to remember them. And first off, I was like, all right, well, he doesn't really even have to remember them because like,
so we walk through it every day.
Yeah, like it's written on like his track, like he knows what he's supposed to do. Like there isn't like doesn't have to remember anything really, right? The other piece of it is if the movements that we're doing with the med balls, aqua bags, like hip mobility, if all of those are different, like essentially movements than what you're doing with your high school, and then those are also different than what you're doing with your pitching guy, I said I would be more worried about what the other people are doing. Like, not saying that I'm the end all be all be right, but like we're doing pretty just simple like med ball throws. Like,
yeah, you're doing pretty just generic rotational stuff.
Yeah, like, and if what I'm doing differs from the pitching guy, what's the pitching guy doing? Like,
right.
And if we're different and we're also different than the high school, what the hell is the high school doing? And so like, and I'm not saying that the kid may not be able to like comprehend everything. It's just like, if you have like 5 different people telling you to do 5 different things in 5 different situations, like it can get confusing. It can be a lot. And I get that. And so like, sometimes it's just like, all right, why do we have this many cooks in the kitchen? What is the quality of these cooks in the kitchen? What is the pecking order of these cooks in the kitchen? Is everybody the head chef, or is there a sous chef? Is there so sometimes just having like too many things going on can be pretty confusing, I think. And so just having too many people in the kitchen, I want to leave that in 2022. What you got?
My next one would probably be for athletes again, is the stop assuming that you can't put on weight.
Damn
it. They're going to try to steal all yours. But I've had this conversation with a number of athletes and a number of parents actually, where I tell them like, you need to gain weight. If you're 14 or 15 and you're 120 pounds, it's very tough for you to be thinking, I need to go from 65 to 75, right? In a healthy way. All right. You've got to be willing to put on weight. And I had a parent once, I was telling this kid, I'm like, you need to put on weight, dude. You need, like, you're thinner than a rail. He's like, well, my family were just naturally skinny. I'm like, no one's just naturally skinny. You can put on weight and still be skinny.
Yeah.
Right. It's your willingness to do it. And this goes back to my consistency point. Like your willingness and your consistency with eating more food, getting in the weight room, doing the things that get you to put on weight. And that's one of those things I get into. I don't get into arguments, but I always kind of like wonder, you get kids who are like, well, I can't gain weight. I'm like, well, how much food are you eating? A lot. Like, well,
What's
how
a
much
lot?
food? Yeah, how much food are you tracking it? It's like, and then we'll get like, oh, like I'm in so many activities. Like, well, maybe you should cut down on your activities. like,
Something ain't working.
Understand like what is your goal here? And this is what I'm maybe it'll be another topic I'll have as well. Is what are your priorities? Are your priorities to be a good baseball player? Then you need to be moving heaven and earth to do everything to make that priority a priority. It's like you said, like there's too many cooks, but there's some kids who are just in too many things.
Yep.
How many kids are, playing on a base? Like I don't know how many times I've had guys like play on multiple baseball teams, right? One, that's just stupid. I hate this. Like, oh, well, on this team I get to do this, on that team I get to do. I'm like, well, why can't you do that on that team? And then it overloads the kid, and then I can't do, like I had this with a kid earlier this year who I haven't seen in a few months, which I'm kind of like, whatever. But, he would play on the weekends. He would do double headers Saturday and Sunday, and then he would come out on Monday for a bullpen. I'm like, well, did you throw Saturday? He's like, yeah, I threw Saturdays. Like, okay, well, what do you want me to do with you? And the dad never consulted me with this. Like he was just like, hey, how you doing? And then he just kind of stopped coming. I'm like, it would be great to have a conversation. Like if you say like, oh, why is my kid not throwing these bullpens? Like, because he threw 80 pitches on Saturday. Like, what do you want me to do? Like you played 4 games all weekend. You're 13 years old, and then you want me to come throw a bullpen with him? What are we going to work on? It's like parents need to understand these expectations of training and getting driven into too many places. And then they get, and this is always my grace, when they get mad at me about my schedule, about like, oh, why aren't you available on Sundays? It's like, because I'm here at the facility from 10 o'clock in the morning.
6 fucking days.
Yeah, I'm here from 10 o'clock in the morning through, 8 to 9 o'clock, sometimes Monday through Friday. And I am here on Saturday from like 10 o'clock to 2. If you can't fit anything in those hours, like then you need to make an adjustment. But like what I was saying was consistency and just making excuses for things that you can do is just you're just not willing to do them. That needs to be left in 2022.
So my thing that you like touched on that I wrote down, things to leave in 2022, 2,000 calorie diets.
Oh.
Like the amount of kids that go through, and I don't even know if they have 2,000
You'll be shocked
calories.
that 2,000 calories was just a very generic average that the FDA came up with.
I'm not surprised at all by that. And like that's one of the things where it's just like, I don't know. I'm tired of hearing kids like maybe they're not complaining directly about them not gaining weight. Maybe they're complaining about not being strong enough or not having enough power, or this or that. Like, but it all comes directly from being able to eat. Like, you got to be able to fuel your body. And if you're not fueling your body, you're not able to do all the other stuff. You're not doing the other stuff. You're not going to get the goal that you want. You don't get the goal that you want, then, we fail. As instructors, we don't want you to fail.
Right. And is understand. I think and I wonder if there's too much, and this goes into maybe the point I had earlier, is there's too much emphasis on the athlete and the parent to just decide that what we do is going to be the be all end all. And like, if I come to Connor, all of a sudden I'm going to start hitting nukes. I'm going to start
the 1 hour a week I see him.
Right. I have kids who just come in for 1 hour a week and just like, well, what do you do outside? It's like, oh, long toss sporadically. It's like, okay, well, you need to be consistent. We need to have a consistent schedule, right? That's what's so infuriating about all this stuff. That's why I'm saying this shit needs to be left in 2022 when you make adjustments. Like coming in once a week with me is not going to do anything for you.
No.
Coming in twice a week, we can be frisky, but it's going to be like, it's like I say with consistency. You need to come on specific days, because that way I can program you to be, here's what you can do outside of the facility. But like if you're going to come on a Monday and then come on Tuesday, like cool, here's your Monday. Monday's going to be a hard day. Tuesday's going to be a lighter day. And then I don't see you for the rest of the week. I'm like, well, what are you doing outside? I don't know why. I would love to get into a point where we get guys to understand you need to come in with far more regularity and consistency to see the results you want.
100%.
And don't get me wrong, I think there's some things we can make adjustments. And I'm not that big of a stickler on the packages at all. Like if you want to come in 3 times a week, doesn't faze me one bit, right? But I was talking to Peter, one of our pro guys who's been with us forever. He trains down at the Driveline facility down in Arizona. I'm like, how often do you guys come in, like the pro guys? And it's like at least 3 times a week, right? That way it gives you time. Like when you come in, we're gonna do hard shit, but I can't do hard shit every day.
No,
all right. I can't. You come in on a Monday and we do hard shit, and you come in on a Tuesday and then we don't do anything hard. Like we just do recovery, mobility. You cannot get mad at me when I pushed you the day before and then it come in lighter, because you need to understand how training modules work. We get too many guys who will just like, oh, I didn't do anything today, and it just seems like a failed day. How many times? So I get this a lot. Like, don't always come in with the impression that everything's going to be a bullpen, everything's going to be velocity, everything's going to be. There are some days that you're just going to need a day to kind of recoup. Mm-hmm. Like I get all too many times, like they go like, oh, what are we going to do tomorrow? I'm like, you're probably going to do recovery. And then I just don't see them. Right. Which is fine. Like as long as you're not doing anything stupid, but they go, when's my next bullpen? Probably Friday. And that's when they schedule for it.
Yep.
And I get it. But like I said, like the consistency needs to be adapted. We can't make consistent progressions. Let's say we're moving into pitch design with guys. I can't make consistent progressions with you on the pitch design side if I see you once or twice a week. I want to be constantly tinkering with things, because then we can shorten that learning curve, that you can learn your changeup or you can learn your curveball, right? But coming in every once in a while, it's like it's not conducive to what you want to do. Like we had a kid that you and I both work with. He comes in more for you than he does for me, right? Because my schedule's whatever. And his goal was to make a summer team, and he didn't make the summer team. It's like, well, I see you once, maybe twice, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you only come on days that are just kind of convenient for you, and I'm going to throw a bullpen with you because that's what your goal is. And then, but I don't know what you've done in the last 2 or 3 weeks. We're just going to kind of keep running back the clock to zero.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's one of the same things. Like, if you want consistency and you want consistent progressions, you need to be far more consistent. And you need, as the athlete, to be, okay, I need to, put this on your shoulders. It's your career, right? It's not your parents' career. It's not my career. All right. It's your career. And you need to take advantage of it. You can't just, you need to be, something we leave in 2022 and move into 23 is athletes take more responsibility for their careers. They need to make a point of, I need to schedule this, or I need to make sure my parents can get me there, or I can find a ride to get to this place, right? Because it's imperative for you. If you want to be successful, you need to do it. No one else is going to do it for you. No. And, I've had that with one of our athletes who I'm like, do you come, like, when do you come? He's like, I just come when my mom schedules. And just like, well, why don't you do it? It's like, this is your career. This isn't like, I almost like feel bad. And I want to tell the mom, like, I just don't think your kid wants this. Like, truthfully, he's a nice kid and all, but like, he never, it just doesn't feel like he wants to be here. And it's like, I don't have the heart to tell the mom, because I feel like the parents are kind of like really, really invested in this because he's their only child. And just like, I don't think your kid wants to be here. He just gives off vibes of like,
it's almost a drag.
Exactly. It's just a drag when he comes in here. It's like, and if a kid's a drag, like it's going to just ruin my vibe. And I'm trying to be up, like trying to get you guys motivated, but it's like, if you're a drag, then I'm a drag, and then no one succeeds.
Makes it tough.
So got anything else? Go finish one more point and then we'll head out.
So I've got my last one right here is going to be, let's go unfocused training methods. So going through and just essentially like just slapping together shit. Like imagine just going to the gym and like looking around and going like, oh, I guess I'm going to, do upper body because the upper body machine is available. Or I guess I'm going to go, squat because the squat rack's available. Or like whatever it is. And like just not having a reason or a purpose for like the time, energy, and effort that you're putting in. Like for me, just having athletes go through and do stuff like that, and having other trainers that essentially go through that, not here, but like other places I've seen, and or kids that, may see, another trainer or have left to go see somebody else or whatever it is, just having unfocused training methods or training sessions that there isn't like a purpose for. Like you're
Right.
just kind of there to be there.
Yeah. I would say like a little bit of consistency and have a plan.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it. Have a plan with what you're doing. I've got too many guys who just like, well, I lift 6 days a week. I'm like, well, what do you do? Like, oh, let's leave the bodybuilding workouts in 2022 and like, get more focused. I would tell guys like, stop. Unless you have a CSCS or know what you're doing, leave the going to the rec center doing bullshit lifts. Like, get a fucking trainer. It's going to do you way more good than just going to the gym and just being like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Get a lifting coach. It's going to do you way more good.
It's gonna help.
As much as sometimes that investment is, it's going to be a much greater return on investment than you believe.
Oh yeah.
Closing out the final episode of the year of 2022, Connor, what are your 1 or 2 resolutions something you want to improve on?
Yeah,
going into next year.
I definitely want to do better with content.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm pretty excited for with me just coming in here in August, kind of got not thrown to the wolves, but like it was one of those where like I got here, everything got set up, and it's like, hey, it's like training season.
It's time to go.
Like go. So I haven't really had that much ability to essentially kind of just sit down and like do blogs and just sit down and make videos on stuff. And so coming up here with high school season starting, college guys go back and stuff like that, a lot more dead time is going to be going on. And so I'm going to have a little bit more freedom to write some blogs and stuff like that. And I really want to do a good job of just staying on top of like writing the PRs and stuff like that. I want to have the leaderboard always active and making it to where it's always accurate and stuff like that. So those would be probably the big 2 things for me. What do you got?
So I don't believe in resolutions. I believe in intentions is the way I phrase it.
Yeah.
So it's like, because I feel like resolution is to pass fail.
Right.
It's like instead of like my resolution is to do this, it's my intention to do this. So like for this 2022, one of my intentions was to read like a book a month, where you like read 12 books or whatever.
Nerd.
I know, right? But I mean, compared to 21, I didn't really read a whole lot, like book wise. But then, I mean, like this year I added 7 books. Like I didn't get to the 10, but I read 7 more than I read the year prior.
Oh yeah, baby.
So my intention for 2023 is I want to be a little more. It's kind of like what we've talked about the entire episode, is like be upfront with athletes and families, which is like, here's what the process is going to look like. And, here's what on-ramping is going to look like. Here's what velo is going to look like. Here's where we can reasonably expect our timeline to be if we stick to it.
Right.
So I feel like you need kind of just having intention to just like kind of explain that a little bit better, as opposed to just like, hey, here's what the goal is. Let's go do it. Like I want to like be able to map out what a kid's training program would look like. And then my second one would be just keep learning more things about different training modalities, or modalities is the word. I got a pretty good grasp on the TrackMan, but I imagine like what are the other things I could do with it? What are the things I think would benefit athletes? We've got a couple of those clean fuego balls in here. Mm-hmm. I've never really played with them, but I know they're very super beneficial for guys. So it's like that's something I want to play around a little more with those things, find more things that can, things that are just kind of off the wall that could help a guy get, fix 1 or 2 things. So those are my intentions for this year.
Hell yeah, dude. I've got, before we head off, I've got a little trivia thing.
So like we said in the opening, you wanted to go back to the ways to get on first base.
Yeah.
Okay. So for everyone listening at home or watching on YouTube, you guys can follow along. Do you know what are the answers to the question?
If you guys want, if you're watching on YouTube, pause in the comments, like write what you think the 23 different ways, different ways.
23 different ways?
Yeah. 23, baby.
No, there's not. There's 7.
We'll see. Now, I think like it's counting like hit by pitch and walk as 2 separate things. So like that kind of situation, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like very like not general, just like a single would.
So we'll go. So let's go with the 7 ways to reach first base.
Oh,
the real ways are.
I don't have that page anymore. I just have this one.
All right. Well, you look it up. I'll go my list.
Oh, this is it's good. You're gonna get it. You'll figure it out. Do your list though.
Okay,
I got you.
The 7 ways to reach first base are base hit, walk, hit by pitch, drop third strike. There is error,
Mm-hmm.
and then catcher's interference. People always forget about catcher's interference, and then drop third strike.
Yep. So this has.
What are the other 14 ways to get on
So
base?
this has nearly 24 options. First look, better way to get a free pass without putting a bat to the ball. These are the ways. So you can walk.
Okay.
You can get an intentional walk.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Which is a walk.
You can get hit by pitch. There can be either interference by the catcher or it says like the batter.
Well, if you're the batter, interference, you can't get to first base.
Interference by a fielder, and a catcher fails to catch a drop third strike. Batters can also get to first base.
Well, I'm sorry. How would a fielder interfere? I'm confused by that.
So if like there's a runner on first, like ground ball to the second baseman, and the guy like fields it, and then,
but you said that without putting bat to ball, right? So the ball wouldn't have to be put bat. You would have to put bat to ball.
You're not wrong, man. Catcher fails.
Got him.
Hey, where is it? Interference either to the batter or the bat by a fielder.
Okay, I would love to see. I would love to see the situation where that.
I would too. Then the next one says, "How could you get to first without hitting the ball?" Batter hits a fair ball and the ball touches an umpire in fair territory before touching a fielder. That's not real. Batter hits a fair ball and the ball touches a runner before the field. That's not real.
Yeah.
Fielder's choice. Oh, fielder's choice.
I don't like this.
I don't like this either.
This list is stupid.
This is a bad list. Now here's one that I do like. Pinch runner.
Oh, come on. No. This list is dumb. Don't get rid of this list. This is a stupid list.
We'll make a real one.
This is a stupid list.
We'll make a real one, and I'll do better about vetting this shit. Hand up. Now I hand up, and all there are 23 ways to reach first base. Source ESPN. So like when I originally was like looking at this and it first said like the source is ESPN for this article, I was like, oh, like must be pretty decent. Yeah, hand up, that was bad.
Yeah. I think that was ESPN trying to think outside the box.
There's a bunch of different crazy ways, so we'll put together our list.
So yeah, the 7 ways: hit, walk, fielder's choice, error, hit by pitch, drop third strike, defensive interference, catcher, or something like that. Those are the true 7 ways.
Fan interference.
Yeah, but that's like on. I mean, usually that's or a hit has been. You don't get on base for a foul ball fan interference. It's just a foul ball, and you probably actually be called out. You wouldn't get on first base.
What if it? Oh yeah. We'll get in the weeds. We'll look it up. We got a long flight to Nashville.
That was bad. Whoever wrote that got really high one night and just like let's really think outside the box on this topic.
That was bad. Hand up.
So awesome. Well, that was a fun way to end 2022. I keep fucking with Mike. That was a fun way to end 2022 there. For everyone, we will be. The week we put this out, we will be heading on Thursday to ABC in Nashville, Tennessee for the American Baseball Coaches Association conference. So anyone who listens to this that's going to be there, reach out to us. We'd love to meet up, meet some new people in the industry. And Connor, where can the people find you?
The good, the bad, and everybody in between can find me at fast_RBI for everything. That's Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. If I didn't say Twitter. Anything fast_RBI. What about you, Cole?
You can find me on Instagram at Cole Thomas Fast, Twitter CThomas624. You can follow Fast on Instagram and TikTok at Fast Baseball. You can follow Fast Performance at Fast Performance CO. Yep. I think maybe some scheduling notes will maybe be delayed on next week's show because we'll probably want to record after we get back from Tennessee. probably give a little recap of all the things we saw.
Oh, it's going to be a good potty.
It's going to be a fun. We'll get to talk about all the people we met, talk about things we learned, and things we look forward to as 2023 officially begins. Woo-hoo. So we will see you all most likely later in the afternoon on Tuesday, if not Wednesday.